As a finance professional, you're constantly looking to learn from the best. Do you want to meet them? Join me and our panel of top industry experts at our next CFO Leadership Live event on August 24th in Dallas, Texas, as we talk with 3 CFOs about the challenges that finance teams are facing today and how best to overcome them. The workshop includes a complimentary buffet lunch and the chance to network with other DFW finance leaders. Head over to cfoleadershiplive.com to secure your seat.
Welcome back to CFO Weekly, where we're talking with financial leaders about how to build efficiency in their teams, create time for strategy, and ultimately get results. With your host, Megan Weiss. Let's jump right in.
Today, my guest is Tom Fencl. Tom has over 20 years of experience in financial management and investment banking. Before joining Pricefx, he held CFO positions at several privately owned middle market companies and advised on M&A and financing transactions across multiple industries, both in Europe and in the United States. Tom teaches a private equity class at the Institute of Economic Studies at Charles University. Tom, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking a little bit about you, a little bit about Pricefx, a little bit about your journey to the position of the CFO, and just some of your viewpoints and outlooks. So I'm really looking forward to learning about you, learning about Pricefx, and so let's get started.
Sounds great.
First of all, and I always ask my guests this question, but can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of your journey to how it is that you ended up where you are today?
Sure. My journey, I guess, started, I'm going to date myself, but the important point is the fall of the Berlin Wall. I grew up in what was then communist Czechoslovakia, and the change of the political climate has had a great influence on my choices in life. And so when I finished college, which was shortly thereafter, I decided that I wanted to move to London and see sort of how the big financial centers work. I guess this juxtaposition of the central planned communist economy and sort of the all new capitalist system and sort of market economy was something that was fascinating to me, and and really from then on, even though I changed my jobs in sort of different roles within finance, I've really been in finance ever since then.
So as you look back on your career, and I can imagine that living through the falling of the wall must have been very significant. But can you point out any particular stories or moves that really stand out in your mind as turning points in your career?
Absolutely. So as I said, I first moved to London. I then went to the US, where I got my MBA at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And from there, I knew that I wanted to be an investment banker. So I went to New York. I joined Salomon Swiss Barney, now part of Citigroup. Then I worked for about 4 or 5 years in New York and I worked also for another firm after that as an investment banker. I left Wall Street shortly before the 2008 crisis, and part of the reason, besides kind of being done with banking, was that I wanted to go back to my country of origin and sort of see how things were changing there and sort of what opportunities were there. I joined a small private equity M&A boutique, and I started working as a investment professional in private equity. And the turning point you were asking about for me certainly came as a result of a failure, if you will. One of our portfolio companies had gotten into pretty serious trouble. It was when we first bought it, it was profitable and had a pretty good market position and all sorts of things were going right for it, and then crisis in 2009 hit it, and within a year it ran out of cash and got into sort of very negative financial situation. And I was asked to join initially as an interim CEO, because we got rid of the CEO that we had there. And then when I hired my successor, I was asked to stay as a CFO, and that really for me was the launchpad in how I ended up in sort of the financial management. It was originally from this sort of crisis management point of view.
Yeah, that must have been an amazing experience, turning a company around, pulling it out of the graves.
Indeed, it was probably some of the most stressful months in my life. Nothing before or after really was like that. And it was also for me. This is now maybe 10 years back, and it was also for the first time realization that what I'm doing for a living, where as I told you, I've been doing finance at that point for quite a while. But what I'm doing is not just sort of working with spreadsheets and numbers and analysis and so forth, but it's really driving decisions that affect people's lives and sort of fates of companies. This company, locally at least, was pretty well known, and sort of lots of people cared how it's going to end. So you'll all of a sudden realize that you have quite a lot of responsibility in making your decisions, and that was definitely a formative moment.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how did you handle that stress?
Good question.
Did you find some sort of outlet? I don't know. I always wonder how people manage through such stressful times.
I guess you need a support of family and friends. It's definitely important to have someone to go back to and sort of talk about your work without it being work. And I was lucky that the CEO that we hired with whom I then worked as the CFO, we became friends, and it was a little bit like I've never been in military, I've never been in war, God forbid, but you read these stories or you watch movies and stuff, how people in those sort of crisis situations become very close, and that certainly was my experience with this guy, where the way I describe it sometimes to people is like, you strip down to your underwear, right? You can't hide anything from each other because you need to trust yourself. You can't bullshit with each other. You just have to rely on each other, and I think that bond, that sort of feeling of brotherhood, does actually help you deal with the stress.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Pricefx. What is it that they do?
So we're a SaaS solutions provider of price optimization and management. So that's basically dealing with companies when they set their prices and they want to optimize their prices. So it's a software that allows that, and the software, essentially what it does for companies, it increases the efficiency and agility of that process, the pricing process. And it also allows to grow revenue and expand margins. The efficiency is achieved and agility is achieved by obviously automation. This is a story that nowadays, hundreds, thousands of companies are some way or another dealing with digitalization and of business and automation. So we're part of that mega trend, if you will. And the part where our customers achieve growth in revenue and margin expansion has to do with the better analysis and optimization. And here I would say that from my own experience, this is something that even before I joined Pricefx, I obviously was one way or another dealing with pricing, either as a financial manager or before as an investor or a banker. And these things are, for larger companies with more complex businesses, they get very complex very quickly. And you have a choice of dealing with it one of two ways. One way is you have a small army of people that take a lot of time working with Excel, slowly, repetitive tasks, and maybe you get the right answers with all the detail necessary, but it's certainly not agile and it's prone to errors. Or, which we would often do as sort of investors or advisors, you do a sort of a quick and dirty analysis where you get reasonably good answer quickly, but at a cost of sort of losing some of the detail. And that obviously then suffers, and often consultants suffer from this because they come up with a good recommendation, but to put it in practice, you need to translate it into actual processes within the company, which we are trying to improve its profitability. And so this tension has been in pricing, in finance, in sort of price management as far as I can remember. It's only now with sort of the technologies that are available last few years that you can do both at the same time. So you have the sort of detail level of, you can change prices at a level of SKU, but at the same time, you can do it quickly and sort of have a pricing manager see sort of holistically the whole company. So that's a really exciting change in how people do business.
Yeah, that is very exciting. Is there like a target client or customer that you guys are a good fit for, or is it any size company, any industry?
So in terms of industries, we can apply our software to pretty much any industry. Exclusion would be maybe a couple sort of regulated industries and so forth, because their pricing is done differently. But sort of any kind of good old industry that you can think of can apply our software. In terms of size, it's less about size; it's more about maybe complexity, if you will, because there is some cost both in terms of time and money to obviously implement software like this. And so if you have a really small and really simple business, then it's not really worth the effort. You can apply it, but it's just not worth, the ROI is not there. But as soon as for us, any business over $500 million in revenue is probably a good candidate for applying this. But generally, the differences between businesses are: do they have a lot of SKUs, stock keeping units? Right? Do they have a lot of different channels? Do they price transactions or price things frequently? Right. So the more frequently you change your prices, the more complex is your sort of channel management, and the more complex is your inventory. Well, the more likely it is that you will benefit from a software like this.
Yep. And is it just a monthly subscription fee?
We started with a monthly subscription. We still offer it occasionally, but given that most of our customers these days are what we call enterprise customers, so that will be $1 billion and more, they are used to paying on an annual basis.
And you've now been at Pricefx for about 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. So as you look back,
I did my anniversary on Monday. Yes.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And as you look back on the last 4 years, what are your proudest achievements?
The thing that I'm most proud of, besides sort of the narrow thing that I was privileged to be able to build a fantastic finance team. And generally sort of operations team that we have, mainly residing back in Prague, Czech Republic. The biggest sort of proud moment for me is that we're still here with the original kind of spirit of kind of can-do attitude. We still have very flat organizational structure. We have lots of sort of internal communication about how the business is going, and that's exciting. That's what really brings me to come to work. I worked in some very large businesses, large corporations before, and sort of the stifling of human spirit, which you sometimes experience there, is something that I'm trying to fight. And so far, we're still pretty successful at that. So that's something that makes me very happy.
Yeah, and let's talk about that growth. So I think when you started, you were employee number 74, and that's now right. The company has over 400 employees. And I love that kind of rapid growth and the challenges that come with it. So let's talk about a couple things related to that growth. First, the talent. How do you attract and retain the best talent, especially in a growing organization where you're constantly hiring and people are pulled in lots of different directions?
So the growth itself is clearly part of the things that attracts people, right? Because with growth comes opportunity, and as an employee, you realize that as the company grows, then sort of there's more opportunities for you to go into more senior role, or maybe change what you're doing to sort of maybe move to new geography or whatever else kind of attracts you about growth, right? If you don't have any growth and everything's stagnant, then you realize that it's very hard to change whatever is your current lot. So I think that clearly is one of the attractors. The second thing is what I talked about a minute ago, which is the culture that we spend quite a lot of time and energy fostering and maintaining of openness. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but no, we call it no bullshit culture.
Yep.
And we actually have a button that kind of like can press in a meeting, and it screams like no bullshit and stuff. So
I love that.
It sounds like a joke, but it's really something that I think is critical to making people excited about working for your company, and I think we've been pretty successful at maintaining that, and that helped us to both hire and retain great talent.
And next, let's talk about processes. So how do you make sure that processes are in place without maybe stifling that startup mentality or the innovation that goes along with it?
So you have to be selective, right? So you need some processes, but you want to really think twice before you implement a new process or make any given process more rigid. I think that the one aspect here, which is important to mention, we not only grew in sort of total numbers, but we also, for the size of our company, we're pretty complex organization. We're global. We operate in 7 different jurisdictions with 5 or 6 different currencies on 3 different continents. So it is pretty complex to keep this together. It wouldn't be possible without modern technology, right? So I spoke about what our own software does, but you can flip it around, and our success is dependent on our ability to use similarly sort of dynamic software for our processes, whether it's accounting, whether it's sales operations, whether it's anything, HR, anything else. So we heavily use various different sort of SaaS systems, and coupled with the responsibility and freedom that we give to people at all levels of management of the company, I think that's what keeps it together.
And lastly, risk. So how do you enable growth? I know that takes some risk taking, but still maintain control over how much risk the company is taking, especially as the CFO.
So I think that there is you're right. Obviously, before you make any sort of big decisions or any risky decisions, you want to analyze and you want to think about it. But ultimately, there is nothing like eliminating risk entirely, especially if you want to kind of grow and expand your business. So for me, it's been always about 2 things. One is our fundraising that we've done has always been, I always pushed for doing it at a time when we weren't out of money, right? So I didn't want to be in a situation where we have no reserve, and because that obviously doesn't allow you to respond to any adverse developments. So having some cash reserve, I think it's critical, and it's not something that I, as a CFO, tell my colleagues too often, but sort of they know that it's there, and they can take risks, and we would survive it if they didn't pan out. And the second thing is monitoring the business. I believe in understanding the business from, whether it's from the financial role or sort of top management role, understanding the business in really great detail and not running the business just by one or two numbers, but really understand it inside and out. And that understanding allows you to see if things are going well, or if there is sort of things that maybe are beginning to show signs of sort of heading in a wrong direction, and then you can respond to that before the problem really becomes big. So I think those two things combined allow you to manage risk.
And speaking of funding, you've raised over $120 million in venture capital funding. So what was your strategy there?
We really, from the start, from the first Series A, which happened the year before I joined, the strategy has been we're raising money to grow. The business is, by the time we raised our first funding, the product was completed. I mean, obviously it keeps developing, but it was a functioning product with paying customers and successful implementation. So that wasn't the issue. But we were originally founded as a company in Germany. The European software market is not nearly as dynamic and large as the one in the US. So we've known that if we want to grow and grow aggressively, that means growing in the US as well as in Europe, and that was really where most of our investment has gone into growing both the sales and marketing effort and ultimately the support operations as well.
And how has that expansion into the US been going?
It's going great. I mean, we were, I think in the year that I joined, I think US contributed something like 25-30% of the revenue, or what we call the annual recurring revenue, ARR. It's now over 50%. It's a market that's still allows us a lot of opportunity for further growth, and we keep focusing on it.
And I know your software probably makes life easier for a lot of companies, but as you look internally, are there tools or technologies that you're using that are helping to make your life easier?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I already mentioned that we use, things like NetSuite or Salesforce for accounting and sales operations. We're just last week we've launched a new initiative where we are rolling out Tableau as a data analysis and visualization platform, where basically we're moving what used to be Excel-based monthly reporting or quarterly reporting into this automated platform, which will giving access to initially the sort of top about 10% of the company, but ultimately the idea is to roll it out broadly to everyone. And the idea here is that people should know up to the minute how the business is doing, and have the ability to really get into not just the top level KPIs, but understanding how those performance metrics are driven by the underlying drivers. And yeah, I mean this is an initiative that took us about a year to pull off, and we're hoping that to see returns on that in the near future.
Yeah, having used Tableau, I mean, I can say that it's an amazing tool. Just to be able to take data and create a picture and then drill down into that data. It's pretty amazing.
Indeed, although it wasn't easy to be sure, and it's not as much the thing with Tableau. Tableau is easy to use, but cleaning up and sorting out the underlying data sources was a big challenge. I mean, you were asking some of the challenges in the growth. Well, one of the big challenges that we face is that as the company gets bigger, different functions, whether it's sales, whether it's product development, whether it's operations or what have you, are growing further apart from each other, right? So it's the siloing of the business, which is natural. It's not something that it's surprising. As humans, we like to kind of operate within a group of people, which is, maybe 30, 40, 50 people. And when it was most of the company was comprised in that group, then you naturally kind of connected, whether personally, directly, or at least sort of mentally connected with pretty much the whole company. As the company gets bigger, the same kind of a group of people that you hold in your mind's eye now is comprised almost exclusively of people in your department or function, right? So that's the issue, and this is something that we definitely grapple with. And cross departmental cooperation and communication is a critical thing for us to address. And one of the ways in which we had to grapple with this was cleaning up this data set, because the data came from disparate systems, and each system was maintained by a different group of people. But we believe, or we hope, that having done this exercise, and we'll have to continue in it as the business develops, but having this sort of one platform where one data set feeds into reporting or analysis for all different functions will be kind of the platform which allows communication between groups to be meaningful.
Yeah, I've heard so many times that having one version of the truth is critical to making sense of data and using it in a smart way. When you started at Pricefx, were they using NetSuite, or were you part of the transition from something else over to NetSuite?
So when I joined, we already have selected NetSuite, but haven't been using it as an accounting system. When I started, we still relied on outside accounting firms in the different jurisdictions to do accounting, and then we sort of struggled a little bit with consolidation, and clearly, that wasn't a sustainable system. So one of the first things that I did was hire a new chief of accounting, and under his leadership, we moved all but one of the entities in-house, and are now using NetSuite as actually the bookkeeping system where all the transactions are recorded, and it's a big difference.
And what advice do you have for CFOs that are looking to drive strategic value to grow revenue and margin?
Well, it's funny you ask about revenue, because CFOs are often expected to just talk about cost and cost cutting, and what I would say is that the first advice is that there's always more value to be created on the top line than there is on the bottom line, right? On sort of cost cutting side of things, because there's only so much you can cut before it starts hindering the business, and not to mention that these days lots of businesses are running fairly lean, but you can always do better on the top line, which whether that's volume, which as a CFO, maybe you cannot affect as well, but certainly on a margin side, gross margin side, and it's one of the reasons why I think that our pricing software is something that CFOs should really look into, because it allows them to really contribute to the strategic discussion by driving the agility of decision making, and identifying opportunities, what I would maybe call sort of surgical opportunities, right? Where you not just kind of make a blunt decision that you're going to raise prices across the board, but you can really identify where you can change your prices, where you can change your terms, because it's not just about list prices; it's about all the discounts and rebates that your business may be giving away. And this is an area which I think CFOs would be well advised to pay attention to and get into, and they could be driving really strategic discussion in the boardroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the evolution of the CFO's role.
Absolutely. I mean, I come from the background where, obviously, being in banking and private equity, I came with the ambition of really having all the aspects of the business subject to analysis or subject to understanding of the CFO, and something that you not only understand, but you can therefore also opine on. it's satisfying. It's a if you're a thoughtful person and you like to kind of understand things, I think it's something that these days is a lot more accepted. It wasn't necessarily the case a decade or two ago, but nowadays I think CFOs are expected to really be stewards of the business, and if you have the opportunity to do it, then you should rise up to it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So lastly, as a CFO, what's keeping you up at night right now?
I sleep pretty well. I think that there is the one area which we already talked about, which is keeping me up a little bit, which is the communication and coordination. When I zoom out from just around kind of company situation, I think that everyone who sort of reads the media or follows the media knows that we're not necessarily in a great place in terms of kind of the global stability, and I think that businesses will face quite a few challenges. Hopefully, not something too drastic, but I think that assuming that you will always operate in a kind of a benign macroeconomic environment is probably not the safest assumption. So I think that kind of looking further ahead and sort of making sure that your business is prepared for even downturns and sort of worse situations is probably something that I think keeps people up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 20 years ago, I don't think it was very important to be a sustainable business or have a mission. But these days, yeah.
Life was simpler. Life was simpler for sure.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Hey, you're welcome, Megan. It was fun to be here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed speaking with you and hearing about your experiences and all the resulting insights that you've shared with us today. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today, and I wish you and Pricefx all the best.
Well, thank you very much.
To our listeners, please tune in next week, and until then, take care.
If you're ready to boost efficiency and streamline your accounting processes at significant cost savings, it's time to talk with Personiv. Their people-powered solutions have transformed the delivery of back-office tasks and general accounting functions for decades, partnering with clients to provide everything from accounts payable to payroll services. See what Personiv can do for you by visiting personiv.com.
You've been listening to CFO Weekly, presented by Personiv. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to hear all of our episodes. Want to learn more? Check out personiv.com. Thanks for listening.